All right, everyone. Welcome to MyVideoBag's Google Hangout podcast. My name is Joe Forte with MyVideoBag, and today we have a really special guest, Ariel Martinez, a filmmaker out of Miami, Florida, and he runs AM Films as well as the Film School account on Instagram and iFilmmaker podcast. Maybe you have some other things, Ariel, that you're working on right now that you can give a shout out to as well. So welcome so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure for sure. I apologize I wasn't able to be on the first episodes. We traveling a lot, so I'm glad we were able to get this settled and get this going.
Yeah, not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. Well, I'm just going to jump right into just some questions so our audience can learn a little bit about yourself. A man of many brands. You're building a lot of things out there, and a lot of times people are just curious about the people running those brands. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of how you got started in filmmaking and some of these other brands that you started, and yeah, just an introduction.
Yeah, so I started filmmaking in general was, I would say, about 7 years ago, right? And I was and the way I started was very, I guess it's not a very common story. I was in college, I was playing football, and I just picked up a laptop and started editing videos. I fell in love with it. I kept editing and editing until after I graduated. I kept editing. I did it for my church and making videos. For a while I did it, only piecing together videos that I would find on YouTube, just to make my church promo videos and series that are coming up, and I would just help out with that whenever I could. And I did it for years before I started actually doing it for money. I never even thought of doing it for money and then I started my business in 2013, right? And ever since then, it used to be 10 Gates Productions. Now I just kind of brand my own name because it's just really me. So I just never thought of trying to put this mirage of a big corporate business. It just didn't make any sense, at least to me. So I started branding my name like 2.5 years ago, and that's learning. It's been it's really the passion of what I love to do. I love to continue to learn how to do this craft, in filmmaking. And it's just something that's just drives me, and so when I started, I got my degree in criminal justice. I never went to a film school. So my whole idea was, let me reach out to as many people as I can. And the only form I knew how to do that at the time was social media. At the time, Instagram was just getting started. Not getting started, but just, becoming increasingly popular. So, I had my account already. So I started the film school account when I discovered the name. I was completely surprised that it wasn't even taken. So I jumped on it, and all I kept posting, what I started first posting, the idea of having that account was to reach out to the community, to see who's out there, and I would post my equipment and what I thought about it. And that's all I really posted was my gear. And right off the bat, people just, it was very frugal equipment, things that were very cheap. I started, just like any other person would start, without a budget, and I just loved making these videos with whatever I had, really. And people liked it, and then I would see other people post really cool equipment, things that I like to see, but I couldn't post. And when I mean I couldn't post, meaning because I didn't take that picture, it's not mine. I didn't, so I would start posting it, and I would always tag them, and people loved that. They enjoyed that. So I continued to do it. No one ever protested it. Everyone loved it, and everyone loved that I would feature their equipment and their name. And I always make sure that I give proper credit every single time, every single post. Whenever I make a mistake and tag the wrong person, they reach out to me. I always rectify the problem, and I'll give them proper credit and continue to post their stuff. But that's been very few times. But you know, that's how that whole thing started. And then, so in, you know, in my own business, you know, it's basic, pure love and passion of what you do. And that's really what has been driven me this entire time. And, you know, it's been one job after another, opportunity after another. And I just, you know, I do the best that I can. And, you know, apparently my clients like what I do for them. So, you know, at the end of the day, that's really where it's at. So it's really the passion and love that you have for what you do, and it just drives you. And so, you know, with this account, it's driven a lot of questions, and a lot of people want to know some stuff, you know, and so I can't just sit there and type every single answer. So, you know, I started the podcast. You know, I started the podcast to try and answer questions and whatnot. Initially, it was supposed to be a YouTube channel, and if you listen to the podcast, you'll know that I've mentioned that, you know, I tried to do it through YouTube, but, you know, the workflow that would require to the way that I would like to do it, I cannot afford to take that much time. So the podcast is much, much easier. I can do it. Like right now I'm in a hotel in Chicago, you know, and I'm actually getting ready to do a podcast later on today. But, you know, if I was to do it in video, I would have to take out the tripods and the cameras, and it's just much more time consuming. So the podcast for now. And, you know, it's been great. People have been loving it. People have been sending in even more questions, and I'm able to answer those questions with my co-host sometimes. And it's been fantastic, you know, and it's something that, you know, I always encourage more questions to be asked, because I wish that I can go ahead and have my questions asked back when I was starting, which I'm sure I could have, but that usually would require more money, you know, these classes that were being offered at the time, which, you know, I'm starting off just like anyone else. You usually don't have a big budget. So what I always try to do is grab everyone's question and try to get the most commonly asked questions and answer those questions like that. So that's the whole point of the podcast.
Okay, so now, yeah, I'm here. We're getting a little communication delay, but I don't know really if that's our bandwidth or what. But it's all good. We'll continue.
Cool.
So let me ask you, now that you've established some of these brands that are getting a following, such as, you know, MyVideoBag, such as Film School, such as iFilmmaker, podcast, has those led into work for you? Because I know a lot of people, you know, they start social media accounts, and sometimes it's more for branding, and they don't really see many sales leads come from that. Has that been a different experience for yourself?
Not so much. Maybe a couple, and I can imagine it's helped with, in the sense of maybe with the Google Analytics and all that stuff. Maybe it has helped, since I do put my website on my own personal account, but I also put kind of my website on the Film School account. But in terms of leads, I can't say it's brought into many. Like I don't think anyone has contacted me and said, "Hey, I saw you on Film School and I want to work with you." I don't think anyone, in the sense that, you know, to offer me a job, but which, you know, to be honest, is not really what I expect at all. I expect that everyone that follows Film School and, you know, in accounts like MyVideoBag are usually people that are trying to learn. They're trying to, or they're just simply interested in the industry. They're interested in themselves being in the industry. I doubt that people that need to hire people like us are probably following that kind of stuff. You know, there's a reason why they're hiring us, because they don't follow that, or they don't do it themselves. But, you know, then, you know, I don't expect the work to come in from them. So yeah, no, I don't get too much work from there at all. But I do think that it does help with the Google Analytics, which is just something that I probably had realized maybe a year and a half ago. It probably has something to do with that, you know, because I do get a lot of visits to my website. That does happen. So a lot of people do go to my website, and they see, you know, they're able to see my work, my bio, everything there. But in terms of leads and work, I don't know, not so much.
Okay, just curious, because I know, you know, even for ourselves and the production company that we run, you know, we kind of see it more as opportunity to brand ourselves and to brand ourselves as experts in the industry, more so than people necessarily seeing it and saying like, hey, we want to work with you. So
yeah, definitely. I do, like, if I do a new work, I will post it and I will advertise it and I'll let people go and check that out, you know, and invite as many questions and comments as possible, you know, and I do stuff like that so more eyes can see my work. That does help, I think. And but again, I never, for some reason, I never have the mentality of hopefully more work could come out of this. I don't know why. I don't think, maybe subconsciously I do, but it's just more in the sense of having more eyes look at it, you know, and that's pretty much it, you know. And yeah, I mean, for stuff like getting more work and more leads, I have directories that I have myself on and that work really well, and that's where I get most of my work out of. So that's really what I rely on.
Cool. I'm just gonna bring back to our live audience on Instagram. If you want to check out our hangout, go to MyVideoBag on YouTube. Just search for it. I'm talking with Ariel Martinez of AM Films and Film School Instagram account. So yeah, I would say why don't we jump into a little more gear specific stuff. I see you work with the Red a lot. You're working with the Sony FS5. Is there any other camera systems that you're working on? And are you an owner-operator of, let's say, the Red? I know a lot of people, I mean, expensive camera.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I don't... Lately, I've been more on the Sony FS5. I worked a lot with the Red when I was used to work with this production company called Noiseworks Media, and they owned the Red, and then that one was basically mine to use for whatever is needed for the company and for my own work as well. And that's where, you know, I got all my experience with Red. These days I rent Red if I need to for a project, and that's pretty much as far as I'll go with that. But I don't think that I'm in the because of the way that I shoot, you know, the way that I shoot, the way that I maneuver through my shoots. Most of the time I'm hired as a one-man band, and the FS5 just makes a lot more sense because it offers more features like, you know, built-in NDs and things like that, where I don't have to go and search for my variable ND and screw that on each lens that I use. That's why I use zoom lens over prime lenses. I know that some features are better than others, like primes versus zooms, but you know, the way that I work is really what I cater my gear toward. So that is why that I choose to shoot with the FS5, and I buy my equipment according to how I shoot, you know. So at the end of the day, it's really what is paying your bills. It's really what it comes down to. You know, I don't make enough to justify monthly payments for Red, you know, and so for FS5 I was able to just pay that off and just build my gear around that. And then, you know, the few times that I do get projects that are worthy of a Red and that a budget is worthy of a Red, then definitely I'll rent a Red. I'll always love to take that route and get that much better bit depth and all that good stuff that comes with shooting on Red. But yeah, I mean, I try to be I go for convenience over quality most of the time, but you know, sometimes there are exceptions.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because we had an interview last month with Jason Sorotin, Atlanta, Georgia. He's a partner in ECG Productions, and they're a multi-million-dollar company out there. And he said they don't have any high-end cameras in-house. He said the only cameras they have in-house, they have a Blackmagic Ursa, and they have a bunch of A7S2s, but anything that needs Alexa or a Red, rent. So I thought that was pretty interesting, because that's a company that, for all intents and purposes, could probably afford that, but they were just, you know, Jason was just saying that because the technology changes at such a rapid rate, it just really makes makes sense to own that. So just thought that was interesting, and seeing that you use the Red as well, I was just curious about how you went about using that.
Yeah, the Ursa is also a fantastic medium there for between, you know, the FS5 and kind of like the Red. The Ursa is a fantastic camera. It's gorgeous. I've even considered it, even when the new Ursa Mini Pro came out, the 4.6 Pro, because that one came out with, I believe, the built-in NDs. Before that, didn't have it. So I think that was something that really made me see Ursa. But that, at the end of the day, because of I always shoot with oftentimes with available lighting. I am documentary style shooting, so I shoot oftentimes with available lighting. The low light performance is just non-existent. It still tops out at 800 ISO, and that was something that I just could not get around. So it's just, at the end of the day, it's just not going to be it was never a camera for me for documentary shooting. You know, it's kind of has the features of the FS5, but with the limitations of low light and whatnot. So you need to still use that as a production, you know, full-on studio camera with controlled lighting environments and all that.
Right. Let's talk about you know, outside of camera bodies, any sort of equipment that you're utilizing in your shoots these days. Anything that you're excited about, whether it's, you know, lenses, stabilization, audio, whatever you want, whatever.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, like, I always go for convenience over quality oftentimes. So a good example of that would be my lens choices. I would always love to shoot in prime lenses because they're usually much sharper than zoom lenses. That comes from having less glass inside the lenses, but they're extremely tack sharp, and I love them. Like, I love the Rokinon lenses. You know, they're not the best, but they're a very, very sharp set of lenses. But that also comes with the inconvenience of having to switch lenses every time you want to get a different kind of zoom range, you know, and that is a huge limitation that oftentimes I don't have you know, I don't have the luxury of having. So, you know, I always come back to zoom lenses. So my favorite zoom lens currently is a 24-105. I use that a lot. The Mark II, it's the Canon 24-105 f4 Mark II. It's a huge improvement from the Mark I, and that is currently my favorite lens to shoot with. And then I also have the Sigma Art 18-35 f1.8. That is another favorite lens of mine because it is so sharp. So I get that lens actually I would have to go back and revisit. I haven't shot in a prime lens in a little bit, but that lens, the Sigma, it's really reminds me of how sharp prime lenses are, and it kind of gives me the sharpness of a prime lens with the zoom range of, you know, with some zoom capabilities. Mm-hmm. So now I believe like my next one would probably be getting the 50-100 of that lens, the 50-100 Sigma Art f1.8, and just because it's so damn sharp, you know. It's either that lens or I don't have currently, which is crazy, I don't have a 70-200, so it's either one of those two. But I think I'll probably be getting the 50-100 before that, which covers everything that my 24-105 covers, really, but you just get much sharper video quality, and it's just gorgeous. So I love those lenses for that. In terms of audio, I'll usually cater for lav microphones because when shooting interviews and these documentary shoots that I do all the time, it's much easier to just slap a lav on someone and then put the receiver on the camera, and then I'm good to go. Sometimes if I have more time, I'll set up a backup audio source, which I'll throw up a shotgun microphone, but that requires my C-stand, that requires my boom pole, and that requires an XLR cable, you know. So that's an inconvenient thing for a running gun shooter and one-man band like myself oftentimes. So if I have the luxury of the time to do that, I'll go ahead and do it. If not, I'll just slap at the lav and make it go into channels 1 and 2, and you know, and just work with that. So that I'll go with the lavaliers, and usually my choice of audio is a Sennheiser. I love their new again, convenience. So I love their new little receivers that they have with the MK. I completely forgot the model number, the model, but it's they have these small little receivers that are like 3-4 inches big, and they go right on the XLR. You don't need a hot shoe mount for that, and it basically, you know, you have them there and you forget that it's there. It doesn't add any more weight to your rig, so that helps out a lot. And so I love that. I love that about it. So, but what I have been considering are the Sony wireless lab systems. This new one that just came out. Now you can have, and it's attached to the shoe mount there that has the connection, so there is no need for XLR input. It attaches directly to the electronic shoe mount there, and you could actually have two transmitters going to one receiver to separate channels.
Oh, very cool.
That makes it extremely convenient. So I will consider that one as well. I haven't had need for more XLRs. So it's, you know, if you know the project comes or something, a series of projects comes where I need more XLRs. I mean, I'm sorry, if I need more labs, then you know I'll definitely be picking that up very soon. So that's what I have for for audio. And then lighting is just, you know, a bunch of LEDs. Really, it's usually do bounce. A bunch of LEDs. I just go for strength and, you know, and the color temperature. I make sure that the CRI is is up to par.
What LEDs are you using right now?
Currently, my main LEDs are the Amaran set, the Aperture Amaran LED sets, and those are rated with the CRI of 95 plus, which is good. Is what I always go for. You want to make sure that those that CRI level is at least 95. I always recommend to make sure you're getting the good the right color temperature coming out of those lights. So yeah, I mean, I get the strong ones so that I can bounce them off the walls or the roof when needed, and I always go for that to get that nice soft lighting. I barely ever like harsh lighting. The softer the better to me. So yeah, I mean, those LEDs, I try not to point them directly because I'll always get those shadows that I don't want. So I mean, when possible, I bounce them, and so I go with that. I have a couple of on-camera LED lights. I don't use them on camera. I use them for backlighting or whatever, you know, anywhere I can put them. And with that, I use mounts. You know, I get some clamps that I can put those LED lights anywhere. I do that because I travel a lot. So I try to find the most convenient, again, convenience or quality. So I try to, you know, get the convenient travel cases with the convenient least amount of equipment that I need, at the same time not compromising what I would need. So those little on-camera lights are great for things like that. So you know, it's just a kind of a tangle that you got to do with the equipment that you have, and measure that with your budget that you have, and what you need, you know. So yeah, so that's pretty much what I work with, most often LEDs. And, you know, I do have a big Kino bank that, you know, power beam that barely gets used because of the way that I work. So it's a beautiful, beautiful light, but I barely ever use it because of, you know, I don't usually have too much work that requires that or that allows me to use it. So more say.
Okay. Any how about some you know, off the camera type of equipment? Any gimbals you're using? I know we just picked up the Osmo Pro that we're really loving, because it really kind of I mean, you're talking about, you know, travel and form factor. I mean, that thing you could bring in your pocket. So yeah. Anything that you're really excited about right now?
Man, you know what? I've this one's rough for me because I do have the Tilta Gravity 1 gimbal, the handheld gimbal where I can slap on my A6300 and get some gorgeous gimbal shots. But lately, and this is all, you know, comes with all the learning stuff. Lately, I've tried to stay away from shooting 8-bit color. So I really don't like. I like to shoot flat and add a nice cinematic color grade to it, you know, to most of my videos. And I love to do that, and I love to play with my colors in post production when I'm editing. It's something that I'm increasingly getting attracted to more and more. So I try to stay away from 8-bit color, you know, and therefore I try not to shoot on my A6300 on any one of my projects. If I absolutely have to, obviously I don't have a choice, but I try to stay away from that. And it you know, a lot of people might say that, you know, it's really about, you know, the end product and whatnot, and most of the time your client's not going to notice it. But when I try to go in depth in my coloring and to give it that nice, beautiful touch, it really limits me, and I've noticed it for sure. Whenever I try to fix that color temperature that was probably messed up in camera, and I kind of want to bring that back to where it's supposed to be, 8-bit doesn't allow that. So unfortunately, I would love to use my G1 gimbal more, but I try to avoid shooting on my A6300. So I think what I'm currently debating is whether I want to pick up a GH5 for some gimbal work, but then, you know, I run into having to not compromise, but trying to match my FS5 and the GH5, you know, so which I've never tried before, and it might not be that tough, but I do get that 10-bit color space that I can shoot. So I mean, it's a whole tangle thing where you have to kind of see what you have to spend, and is what you're buying going to give you, is it worth what you're going to pay for it, and is it going to add that much value to your work? So it's one of those things where you just have to kind of weigh your options. Yeah, I mean, and in terms of a full-on 3-axis gimbal, I don't think, even if I did have one, I move my shoots. Usually I have to move really, really fast, and I don't have the time to set up a gimbal just for certain shots and then take it off the gimbal and get regular shots. So I think something like a glide cam would have to come in handy, which I haven't used in a long time. And I was just thinking about it the other day, like, man, I might have to pick another one up, like the new one that just came out, because I used to be really good on the glide cam. It takes a lot of practice for that, though, to maintain those kinds of skills. But you know, a glide cam would make a lot more sense. I can just slap that on, take it off when I need to, and I'm good to go. Gimbal takes much more time to set up. So, you know, what I had a friend of mine just up and bought a second FS5, which great, if you have the money, do it. And he just keeps the FS5 on his gimbal, on his Movi, and he's just good to go whenever he's ready. But I'm not gonna go and buy a second FS5 just to have it on a gimbal ready. So just one of those things you have to weigh on what is needed for your project. I don't even have a drone yet because most of my projects don't require one. So I got to see if, you know, all I need is a reason. If I have projects that require more drone shots, then obviously I would definitely make that investment. So, but you know, gimbals, that's my conundrum when it comes to gimbals. Like, I would love to use them. They're great. But most of the time because I barely use a tripod. Like, I have to go handheld most of the time because I just don't have the time to set up a tripod oftentimes even. So let alone a gimbal, like it's going to be too intense, too crazy for me. So yeah, that's the conundrum there. That's the back and forth.
Any thoughts about the what we should be expecting from the Sony A7 III or A7S Mark III? Because I think I hear some things about might be comparable to the GH5, especially with the 10-bit color and you know, some other cool features.
That is the hope. That is definitely the hope. If they come out with a 10-bit color space, that's pretty much like problem solved for me in terms of, you know, the gimbal.
Right.
But I don't know, man. Like, Sony always comes out with these very, very impressive new cameras. They're always pushing the limits, and so is Panasonic. Panasonic simply just takes a lot longer to do it. But Sony, they're always constantly pushing the limits on the kinds of cameras and the features that those cameras include, which is why a lot of people now are, including myself, obviously, are you know, heading in that direction, heading in a Sony direction. You know, and I just have to mention the Panasonic also stepping up their game, even though it takes them like 5 years to do so. Maybe not 5. It takes them like 3 or 4 years to release something new. Whenever they do, they don't disappoint, and I gotta say that, because for sure with the GH4 and the GH5 has been fantastic, and now with the EVA 1, it's something that is definitely, I have to wait for what Sony come backs with. You know, with their new releases, maybe a A7S III Mark III. That would be very impressive and very, you know, interesting to see what they come out with, and I'll definitely be keeping a close eye on that for sure.
How do you feel about Canon kind of getting pushed to the wayside by, you know, Panasonic and Sony?
Canon,
I mean, they were
Canon
revolutionized our game, and then now they're kind of in the game.
Yeah, I mean, Canon is a love-hate relationship with them, because I think everyone agrees, most people agree that their color science is on point. You know, their stuff is gorgeous and it looks beautiful, right? But they make you spend like an obscene amount of money to get what all these other manufacturers are already offering for less than half of what they're charging. So that's why I say it's a love-hate relationship. With the release of the C200, it's been like they're trying to give us what we've been asking for, but not really. Like, they'll give us what we've been asking for in the sense of internal RAW, 4K, all that good stuff, but then they take away the more standard features, like regular 4K at 10-bit, you know, or regular even HD at 10-bit. No, you have to get that external from the camera, so now you have to get a monitor. So at the end of the day, you're spending so much more to get just the standard stuff, but they give you the high-end stuff. So that's why I mean, like, it's super crazy love-hate relationship with Canon. I think, you know, Canon they're definitely up there. They're a huge standard, but unfortunately they're losing the support of the film community, in my opinion, because they're just not playing ball. They're really playing hard to get. Like, Canon is just, you know, it seems like they don't, you know, give a crap, you know, about what, you know, I think it wouldn't have been so hard to just put 10-bit 4K internal, you know,
right.
And I'm not talking about RAW, I'm talking about MP4, you know, and it would not have been that hard. But no, they make you, you know, get an external recorder for just something that's so standard, that's coming out in cameras now that are so standard. And so that's the whole thing with Canon. So, you know, when you think about now filmmaking, you rarely hear someone, oh, I shoot on Canon. Like, it's, you know, it's something that it's increasingly becoming rare and rare to hear from a filmmaker. They shoot on Canon, on a Canon cinema camera. People are catering more towards Sony now with the release of Panasonic, the EVA 1, which sounds, and actually the footage that I've seen looks really, really good. That's going to grow increasingly. Like, if Canon doesn't do something, like if they don't do something soon, it's going to be a very rare occasion where you hear or see someone shooting some you know, running their production company on Canon. So it's really, you know, and also the Ursa, you know, it's just, you know, all these other companies are willing to give us what we've been asking for, you know, at a reasonable price.
Right. Yeah, it seems like a lot of these other manufacturers are really peeling away market share from Canon, just by, like you were saying, giving the features that we all been asking at a reasonable price. I mean, our production company, when we were you know, looking to get a new camera, I mean, we were considering a C300, but then when you compare a C300 to a Sony FS7, I mean, you're getting pretty much the same thing for more than half the price. So we ended up getting the FS7 and loved it. So yeah, I just think it's an interesting conversation, and wondering what they're thinking, and you know, hopefully they're going to be playing ball soon, or they're going to just continue to lose market share on the filmmaker side.
Yeah, I think most of Canon products are pretty much catered. I mean, they are trying to cater toward the film community, but I think they're first and foremost a photography company first. So I think photographers are still gonna choose Canon for for their products, and Nikon is, you know, their real competitor in that arena. But in the film, you know, in the film community, like they're losing a lot of you know, more backing and support from people like us that, you know, want to take our you know, our game to the next level, right? With higher resolution, with better codecs and bit depth, you know, but Canon's making it very, very hard to give that to us, you know, to provide that, you know, at a reasonable price. So it's just in that direction. So it's unfortunate. But
okay, well, we're you know, about to shortly get wrapped up. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you know, what's going on in your filmmaking life? Any personal projects that you're excited about, that you're working on? What should we be expecting in the future from iFilmmaker? Any exciting topics that are coming up? And just anything going on, current events or in the future that you'd like the community to know about.
Yeah, so right now, like my business life, and you know, my business is actually, it's getting quite busy. It's always a good problem to have when you're very busy in business. So you know, I've just been traveling nonstop, and which is great, you know. But I am still trying to maintain a workflow for my passion projects and also the podcast. So you know, for the podcast, I've been just back and forth with some of my colleagues that that help me run it, and some of the other friends and whatnot that are good business people, and I just, you know, let them know what I have. So, you know, some of the ideas for the podcast is like, you know, I definitely want the podcast to have its own website. Currently, it's just being hosted on my own website, just because I haven't had the time to properly make a separate website for it. It definitely takes a lot of time. So for now, I'm just directing people to, you know, to the ifilmmakerpodcast.com. And which is really just a redirect to my website. But, you know, I definitely see the podcast growing into a good platform, a website where people can go not only for a podcast, but they can go and get the latest news and updates on what's been going on in the film community, you know, and get a lot more people interviewed, a lot more prominent people in the industry interviewed. And I'm talking like Hollywood level status and whatnot. So that's definitely in the works there. I reached out to several other companies that are, you know, like I'm working on having an interview like with Shotover and GoPro and all these other companies, where we're trying to schedule some interviews to come, Pelican, and you know, just trying to get to see what can we expect in the near future, to see what their whole mindset, just basically get the listeners connected with the actual manufacturers of the products that we that we use. And so, you know, that's the whole point of the podcast. And also, you know, to get their questions answered, to basically make this a full-on community. And I know that there are already communities out there, but you know, I definitely want to make this one a very reachable one, something that where you can literally send me a message on Instagram and you can know that I will be there to answer it. So, and obviously that won't always be the case, but definitely as it continues to grow and once we are able to kind of like monetize it, that's the direction that we're always gonna take, where we can always be there to, you know, answer questions, and whether it's on Instagram itself or on the podcast, and just talk about all that stuff. Maybe, you know, and I'm thinking about adding a third episode, because right now we're posting 2 episodes per week. And I'm thinking about doing a quick Q&A episode in between. So something where we just answer, just kind of a rapid fire answer question. So it'll be, you know, just like an iFilmmaker Q&A type deal, where we will do that once a week. So, you know, things like that are being thought of and all that. So, and then in terms of like on Instagram and whatnot, just, you know, it's a platform right now where we have a lot of attention, where we have people, you know, they just really like gear. You know, these are gearheads. I'm a gearhead. You know, we're all gearheads, so we love that stuff. So we're just basically going to keep it that way, and you know, we'll see where that takes us. You know, and so, you know, for now, it's really all about, you know, I'm building my business, and so are my colleagues. And then, you know, we have this podcast where we can communicate and talk and just reach out to the community and just keep them pretty much updated to what we do, how we do it, how we learn it, and then share that information with them, like with no strings attached, you know? So, and so that's pretty much where it's at. Cause, I definitely don't claim to be the know-it-all of everything. I definitely make mistakes on set, but the difference is I'm going to share those mistakes with you. I'm going to share how I overcame those mistakes, if I overcame them, so that if, hopefully never, but if anyone comes to the same issue, comes across the same issue, they're able to remember what was said and see how, you know, give those ideas where they can just overcome those mistakes as well. So it's pretty much kind of, that's why I like the slogan, learning filmmaking together, because as I learn, I'm going to share what I learn and move forward. So kind of that kind of deal. So
very cool. Well, yeah, why don't you share with the viewers how they can connect with you over social or contact you?
I think, yeah, the best way to contact me would be through my Instagram, my personal Instagram, which is arielmartinez.tv, at arielmartinez.tv. That's also happens to be my website, arielmartinez.tv. I think that's the easiest way currently to get connected with me. And I think my email's on there as well, so you can email me there. And that's, you know, if you're not following already, you go ahead and follow me on Instagram. And the Film School account is at Film School. And the podcast, you could always go to ifilmmakerpodcast.com, and there you'll find the links where you can either go and listen to it on iTunes or SoundCloud or Google Play. And depending on the device that you use, I know most people have iPhones, so they would probably go to iTunes, and you can check it out there. We're almost 60 episodes in right now, and it's just going strong, you know, and there's no plan on slowing down at all. Actually, we're planning on ramping it up. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Very cool. Well, yeah, great talk to you, Ariel. I really appreciate you coming on, and
you too, man.
Just learning about what you have going on, and you know, inspiration to a lot of us filmmakers out here that you know, are so busy in our day-to-day business lives and work lives. You know, it's inspiration to see someone like yourself that's out there grinding, but also finding the time to build these other platforms for you know, giving back to the communities.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for that. And,
thanks for having me, Joe. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. Well, thanks so much again, and I'm sure we'll have you on again soon.
For sure. Awesome.
Thanks.